Cal storms into the Coliseum with the nation's second-best passing attack and averaging over 43 points per game. Can USC slow them down? Coverage begins Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, TMZ has photos of a coach on the Redskins urinating into a paper cup on the sidelines. That cannot be appropriate.
I'm Tony Kornheiser. No, it isn't. Paper cups can leak. I use a mug.
No, you don't. That is one step short of Ryan Lochte land. Come on.
Yeah, no. So now you have to guess, because I now have two mugs on the desk. One is filled with that, and the other has tea with lemon. And now you're going to have to guess which one I'm going to use.
I'm not there. I don't have to guess, but you better guess appropriately.
I'm going to guess right. Trust me on this one. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Brock Osweiler struggles. The Giants release Josh Brown, and Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and the Warriors open their season. But we begin today with Game 1 of the World Series, scheduled to start at 8:08 Eastern Time in Cleveland tonight. The biggest development of the day is that the Cubs have put Kyle Schwarber on their World Series roster and will start him tonight at DH and bat him fifth. Schwarber hasn't played since April 7th when he tore his ACL. Wilbon, are your Cubs doing the right thing by starting Kyle Schwarber?
God, Tone, this is so result-driven. I don't know. I have a bias, I'll admit to right up front. I'm neighbors in Chicago with Kyle Schwarber. I love him. I talk to him in person every week, multiple times a week since April, since he was limping around on crutches. And I just say, how you feeling? How you doing? This is every day sometimes for stretches. And the crutches go away. The brace goes away. He works out. He plays. He gets to a point. He goes to Arizona last week, and he plays in games. And, Tony, I don't know. I know there's risk involved here. You're in the World Series, and this guy was a star from last year's postseason.
That's right.
But, Tony, they need a bat. Jason Hayward doesn't need to be out there in right field. I'd rather have Schwarber. Everybody in Chicago would rather have Schwarber. There's risk. I get it. But I'm biased. I don't know. What would you do?
I would not play him. Look, this is a
at
wonder.
All? You wouldn't play him at all?
I wouldn't play him tonight. I wouldn't play him at all tonight. Here, let me count the months. April, May, June, July, August, September, October. He hasn't played in all that period of time. People say he was great in the Arizona Fall League. He got one hit. He got a double. And they say, oh, he hit this line out that was 110 miles an hour. He got one hit in the Arizona Fall League, the same as Tim Tebow. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I hope and trust he's a good neighbor. He hasn't played in 6 months, Mike. What does the rest of their bench look like? Jared Goff? How are you playing this guy?
Because look, are they thinking wishfully, of course, going back to last season? But I'm pointing out to you again, Tony, the Cubs don't have many holes in their lineup. Hayward's one of them, all right, and that's a left-handed bat, as Schwarber is. Schwarber's just going to DH. And, Tony, if he gets out there and he looks like he's overmatched, then remove him from the lineup. You're not committed to playing him all 3 games in the American League City because he's in game.
If he hits something out, if he hits it well, it's one of the great stories ever. It's like right out of the movie The Natural. I understand that. But, again, let me point out, he hasn't faced major league pitching in 6 months. So I'm not certain it's going to work.
Who's certain it's good? Who's certain anything's going to work? What's certain about the Cubs after 108 years? Put Schwarber in the lineup.
Certain thing is that they're in the World Series and they got a chance to win.
Yeah, that's certain.
That's certain.
Tony, I know you're stunned I'm not in Cleveland. I'm in Oakland.
I am.
Well, San Francisco right now, going to Oakland because the NBA begins tonight. The Knicks are in deliriously happy Cleveland, where LeBron and the Cavaliers will raise a banner, presumably to a half-empty stadium. And here by the Bay, the Spurs will visit the new-look Golden State Warriors. So most people have already concluded the Dubs and Cavs will meet in the finals for a 3rd straight year, something that's never happened in the NBA. Is there anything in the league that will compete with watching the Warriors this season?
No. The only thing that would come close is when the Warriors play the 2 games against LeBron and the Cavaliers, but that's the Warriors as well. Now, maybe you tell me that Schwarber is going to play against the Warriors and everybody's going to watch that. No, the narrative of the season is very simple. The Golden State Warriors were the best regular season team ever. Let me stress that, ever. They won more games than any team ever won in the regular season, then they couldn't close. They did not close. So they're going to look at this season as a chance for redemption, and they have added Kevin Durant, who will be the single most scrutinized player in all of basketball, and everything they do matters, and everything everybody else does,
Well, I'm not going to say the Cleveland Cavaliers are defending champions with LeBron James, who you once again have declared, and probably rightly so, is the best player on the planet.
Yeah, he is.
Don't tell me nobody's going to watch him.
Not as much.
But, Tony, I will
Warriors.
agree with you to this degree. I think that you look behind those two teams. The West is no longer formidable. The Spurs probably are, and I'm going to watch that game in person tonight. But who else is? The Clippers have teased us for too long. What other team in the West? I think OKC is going to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the Western Conference, but there's no depth to that. In the East, I think Boston's worth watching, but don't tell me that the other teams in the East are a threat to Cleveland, because they're not. But so I think there's no depth. But there are a couple of other storylines. But yes, Kevin Durant and the Warriors are the number one story.
Here is the storyline. It's about the Golden State Warriors. If they lose 2 in a row, or God help them 3 in a row, people will say they made a mistake getting Kevin Durant and they got greedy. No matter how many games they win, people say, I don't care. Let me see them in the playoffs. And then the storyline is, are they going to win because of Kevin Durant or in spite of Kevin Durant? It's all about them and him. And that's what it is this year. Last night marked the return of prodigal quarterback Brock Osweiler to Denver. The Broncos defense held Osweiler to a ridiculously low 131 yards in 41 pass attempts as Osweiler's team lost 27-9. Now, Osweiler famously left the Broncos for big money in Houston after the Super Bowl last year, spurning the Broncos' offer to make him their franchise quarterback. Wilbon, did Osweiler make a mistake by prioritizing money over winning?
Tony, I'm loath to tell a player not to prioritize money in the NFL, where people can get rid of you. They get rid of people every day. This is not the other 3 professional sports in North America where what you sign for is guaranteed. So when it comes to football, I have had plenty of conversations where I look at a guy and say, are you crazy? You better get the money now while you can. But in Osweiler's case, the money wasn't so dramatically different. I know that $2 million more plus a state tax difference in Texas means more money.
Yeah.
But, Tony, you can get rich in Denver just locally. You're a god. You know how football is, the Broncos in Denver. You're such a god.
Yeah.
You can make it up there, and he had a better team and a better defense. I don't know. I'm still reluctant to say pass up the money.
I'm going to guess at everything I'm saying now. This is a complete guess. I'm going to guess that Osweiler might have been miffed at Gary Kubiak and John Elway for the way they dumped him and put Peyton Manning back in right around playoff time. I'm going to guess that he thought if I go to Houston and I play with J.J. Watt, that's almost like playing with Von Miller. I'm going to guess he's going to say, I need a new start, and I want to get away from that. And I think he guessed wrong at this point. Now, maybe down the road it'll turn out he guessed right because Houston plays in a terrible division. But Osweiler's numbers this year are awful, Mike. He's dead last in the league in yards per pass attempt. I mean, he hasn't delivered in the 2 most important games they played, at New England without Tom Brady when they got crushed, and at Denver last night. He's getting like 5 yards at the most per pass attempt. It's nothing.
But, Tony, system and coaching staff and players around you, and I don't mean J.J. Watt on the other side who can't help you. All those things come into play, and they came into his mind, and he said, I'm going to go to Houston anyway. This is a great offer. I understand it.
Yeah, me too. I understand taking the money. I think that in the near term, it looks like he made it wrong.
In the short term, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Tone, let's revisit Sunday's abysmal tie between the Cardinals and Seahawks. Russell Wilson, still peeved about it, says games should never end in the tie, and he's offering a solution. Wilson says have a coin flip, spot the ball 35 yards from the goal line, and let the team that won the coin toss attempt a field goal. Make it, you win. Miss it, you lose. Tone, do you like this solution?
Well, let me be clear about this. This solution is idiotic. There's just no other word to describe it. This is not even a football play. This has nothing to do with football. I understand it'll save wear and tear on a quarterback in overtime. He won't get hit. But this is not the way you decide a game. And by the way, my prejudice is different than Russell Wilson's. Ties are in the fabric of football. They're not bad in the regular season. They're not terrible. They don't happen in the playoffs. They don't happen in the Super Bowl. They're legislated out of games like that. I don't see why it's so terrible to have a tie in the regular season. You cannot decide it. He doesn't even say if it's after 60 minutes or 75. You can't decide it by trotting somebody out there on a make-or-miss field goal. As exciting as that may be, that's idiotic to me. What about you?
Soccer does it to a different degree. I completely disagree with you. I don't like the solution. I don't think one kick should decide the game.
Well, that's what I'm
but
saying.
I don't want to see any ties.
Okay.
It's wholly unsatisfying. It's stupid. I don't care if it's in the fabric of the league. You know what else is in the fabric of the league? Dick Butkus standing over a quarterback and counting him out.
Right.
Lawrence Taylor snapping Joe's leg.
All the things
Those
you
are in
like.
the fabric of the league, too.
All the things that made
and
you a
know
football
what?
fan.
They've been legislated out. So don't tell me you can't legislate out something as worthless as a tie.
Do you want to decide it this way by a single kick?
No, I said that. So I come up with something else. Okay, so that's a good story. Russell Westbrook. I'm already in basketball mode. Russell Wilson has at least gone somewhere to say, hey, let's get rid of this, and I agree.
He's going to bozo land. Why don't you do what hockey does and make it 7-on-7 for a period? You know what I mean?
I'm with that.
But not a single kick. Not
again.
What?
His first attempt at a solution missed.
Yes.
But at least he's recommending something. What are you recommending?
His first attempt
You're recommending
went
a tie.
Right.
You're recommending a tie. How lame is that?
I like ties in the regular season.
Luckily, I know you don't have a sister.
Jason Kipnis, your boy, is a second baseman for the Cleveland Indians. He's also a native Chicagoan who attended the same high school as the infamous Steve Bartman.
Glenbrook North.
Kipnis thinks Bartman should throw out the first pitch at one of the Chicago home games. And Kipnis said, quote, I would love to see him throw out a first pitch. Everyone would go nuts, unquote. Well, but if you were Steve Bartman, how would you feel about this?
I probably wouldn't want any part of it. I mean, Bartman has turned down hundreds, maybe thousands of invitations to come back to Wrigley Field with security and all these kinds of things. Thousands.
Wow.
Sing the anthem. The Tony has been going on for 10 years. He's been invited back. And so I didn't think of this at all. Our dear friend Charles Barkley texted me Thursday, and he said, you guys should have Bartman come back and throw out the first pitch. That Charles's suggestion was the first time that it crossed my radar. And I know other people have suggested it since then. I would think he'd want no part of it, because suppose something goes wrong in that game.
Yeah. That's right.
Suppose they lose some epic, bizarre, twisted game, and he's on the other. I think he should be invited back. I hope he accepts. I hope it's over. But I don't know about first pitch.
If I were Steve Bartman, Charles Barkley notwithstanding, I wouldn't go anywhere near this. Because, as you say, what if the game that I throw out the first pitch, they lose? What if they then go on to lose the World Series? My life would be even worse this time because we could mark the time when they began to lose. So I would never do this. Maybe if they win the World Series this year or next or whenever they first win it. Right. Maybe then if the Cubs invite them back and promise them that the cheers will drown out the boos, maybe if I were Bartman, I would consider it. But even then, Mike, I don't think I would do it because I couldn't be. I mean, people like the players, the management, the press, people like you killed this guy in the near term afterwards.
Yeah, a lot of us killed him.
If I'm Bartman, I've spent 13 years running away from this. I wouldn't do it.
It's been a long time. You hope there's never going to be forget because there's video now. And people just go to video all the time. And we just did it. But it might be too soon. Maybe he could just come and sit in his seat and people will applaud. They can acknowledge him during the game.
But he should never do it until they actually win. No, we shouldn't.
Maybe not.
No, let's take a break. Coming up, we will ask Tim Kirchin, who has the pitching advantage in tonight's World Series opener.
And Jason Hayward was the biggest name of the offseason, big money, but he's out of the lineup tonight. We'll ask Tim what insiders are saying about that.
This is the tea, kids. This is the hot tea with lemon. Don't worry.
This is Larry Culpepper, and if you love college football as much as I do, enough to invent the playoff, you're welcome. Do yourself a favor and subscribe to the Championship Drive podcast in the Listen tab of your ESPN app. App is short for app.
If Wilbon were a real Cubs fan, he'd be in Cleveland tonight for the start of the World Series. That's where we find our good friend, ESPN baseball analyst Tim Kirchin. Timmy, let's start with this. The Cubs not only activated Kyle Schwarber, they're DHing him, they're batting him fifth. It's a very nice story, but isn't it overly optimistic?
Well, this is going to be really tricky, Tony, because he had 0 hits in the regular season. So he's going to be the only non-pitcher ever to have no hits in the regular season and then play in the World Series. Now, he's Kyle Schwarber. He's the all-time home run leader in the postseason in the history of the Cubs franchise. Think about that. And he's been swinging the bat really well lately. So Joe Madden told us yesterday, we're going to activate him, and we're not just going to use him as a bat off the bench. He's going to be the DH. The danger is he's going to be facing Corey Kluber tonight, whose stuff is spectacular. So needless to say, Schwarber and everyone else will be up against it. We'll see if this works. This is a risky move, but the Cubs love this guy, and this guy loves to hit.
Well, Tim, there's another lineup change that Joe Madden is making. Sitting Jason Hayward, the $800 million man in right field, was at a terrible time at the plate. He has said all the right things about being a team guy, and he appears to be that. But what are people there? What are the baseball insiders and industry people saying about Hayward sitting to start the World Series?
Well, some people are certainly surprised that he's not starting against a right-handed pitcher. I don't think we'll see him against any left-handed starters, if there are any, for the Indians in this series because he has struggled so badly. But, Michael, he had a terrible offensive season. When you slug .320 in the major leagues these days, that's just unacceptable for a corner outfielder or from almost anyone. They're going to miss his defense in right field because it's very good, but it just shows you what his slump is right now, that they would take Chris Coughlin, who's a pretty good major league hitter. He hasn't started a game in the postseason, and now he's starting game one of the World Series.
Tim, you talked earlier about the great stuff that Corey Kluber has. John Lester gets a lot more attention. John Lester's probably going to win the Cy Young in the National League. Given all that, does he have a clear advantage over Kluber or no?
No, I don't think so. Now, his postseason numbers, Tony, are ridiculous. 3-0, 0.43 in his World Series career, and his postseason ERA is 2.50, which when you start looking at the best big game pitchers of today, he's right in that conversation after Madison Bumgarner. But what we need to watch tonight is, are the Indians going to try to run against him? We know he can't even throw the ball over to first base in a pickoff situation. And the Indians led the league in stolen bases. And they're a great base-running team. And Terry Francona, the manager of the Indians, is a risk taker. So the Dodgers took 21-foot leads off of first and didn't run to second. I think we're going to see the Indians really push the action and run against John Lester when they get somebody on base.
I think that the Cubs are really a great team, and so I'm not sure it's going to be a great series. Why do you think it's going to be a great series, and which way are you leaning ultimately?
Well, I picked the Cubs to win in 7 games, and I'm going to stick with that because this Indians pitching is really good. 1.77 ERA in the postseason, and most important, they have Andrew Miller, who is a reliever, a pitcher that nobody else has in the game today. This guy has had a strikeout rate in this postseason that no pitcher has ever had in postseason history. And most important, he can pitch in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. If the Indians get a lead and that guy comes out of the bullpen, the Indians have a chance to win this series. Plus, there's something special going on here in Cleveland. Trust me. The question is it more special than what's going on in Chicago? I say this goes 7 games.
Oh, you made Wilbon crazy just now.
No, you didn't,
made
because
him crazy.
Hey, Timmy, Wilbon already knows this. One of us is paying attention because one of us follows the team closely. The other one, he's off in New York somewhere, so 7 games it is. I'm going the same with you.
Actually, I'm in D.C., and I'm looking at the 27 Yankees. Thank you for joining us, Tim.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Michael.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, the Knicks, of all people, are garnering more bets to win the title than any other team. Respect my Knicks, Wilbon.
Where did I just say you were?
I'm in Washington.
Really?
Yeah.
And Arian Foster retired from the Dolphins. How is his career going to be remembered? I didn't even know he was on the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think just this year.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to remember him much in Miami.
No, Houston. He did a fine job in Houston.
Yeah.
Wake up, Tom. Pay attention.
College football lives here. Thursday night in the Pac-12, Cal heads to the Coliseum to face USC.
Airs it out down the left side of the field. Jump ball picked off!
The Golden Bears' high-powered offense is top 10 in the nation in passing yards and points scored. Can USC slow them down in their quest to defend their Pac-12 South title?
Touchdown, USC!
Find out Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Presented by Dr. Pepper.
Happy time, people. Happy 45th birthday, Pedro Martinez. Pedro, of course, has been visible recently on the TBS pregame show, and every time he's on, we're reminded about how great a pitcher he was. From 97 to 2000, Pedro won 3 Cy Youngs. And from 97 through 2003, he led the majors in ERA 5 times, and his record was 118-36. Any questions?
No, Tony. And I'll tell you what else. Pedro is another guy who's really terrific in his role as analyst on television.
Yes, he is. Happy anniversary, Kirk Cousins. On this day last year, you led the Redskins back from a 24-0 deficit to beat the Bucs. This was the game that Coach Jay Gruden called the Code Red game. Had the Redskins lost it, Cousins and Gruden could have been gone. After that win, Cousins famously ran through the tunnel screaming, "You like that?"
What did he say after losing to the Lions on Sunday?
You didn't like that?
Oh, okay.
Happy trails, Josh Brown, the Giants kicker, no longer employed by the Giants. They cut him today, even though he was on the commissioner's exempt list and would not have played for them. The Giants re-signed Brown, knowing he had been charged by his ex-wife with domestic abuse. As late as last week, the Giants said they were not going to turn their back on Josh Brown, and this week they did.
Tony, I think this episode is going to go from one that sparked very little conversation outside of New York to one that is going to mushroom. It is going to be enormous, and I think it's going to lead to the loss of jobs.
In what sense?
I think this is an enormous thing. The league mishandled it. And for whatever reason, it didn't get as much attention as Ray Rice, and there was no video forthcoming.
No video.
I think this is going to really be enormous going forward.
Okay. One error, Wilbon, you suggested Steve Bartman should be invited to Wrigley to sing the anthem. I think and hope you meant take me out to the ball game, right?
Take me out, not the anthem.
All right, let's go to the big finish.
Let's do it.
Arian Foster retired effective immediately. How will you remember him as a player?
Tony, he had a burst there for a while, but like a lot of running backs now, they don't have the sort of lifespan of some of the great running backs previously. Very enjoyable, smart guy. I like him. Sidney Crosby could play in his first game of the season tonight. Your thoughts?
He's out with a concussion. He's had concussions before. They almost ruined his career. I worry about him. Cavs owner Dan Gilbert calls his relationship with LeBron a partnership. Is that accurate?
Oh, no question. I mean, you call him the GM and the coach all the time.
Yep.
I mean, I know you mean bigger than that, too.
Yep.
Yeah, it's accurate. It is with any superstar in the NBA. The Westgate Superbook says no team has attracted more bets to win the NBA championship than the Knicks. You want to make that case?
No, stop it. Last one. Jazz at Blazers tonight. Give me a reason to watch.
Tony, Utah, a fashionable pick to crack the top 4 or 5 in the Western Conference. I'm skeptical, but others are not.
I'll be long asleep. We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. Check out the PTI podcast on iTunes.
OtterBox, not just for keeping your otter.
What?
PTI. It's one of the biggest rivalry games in college football.
Jump ball picked off.
The Florida Gators and Georgia Bulldogs in Jacksonville.
10-5, touchdown Georgia.
Coverage